As I'm looking here for the reason that I chose the drink for tonight, I just remembered that I have to come up with 9 words, and it seems daunting this evening.
No.
It seems daunting.
As
you don't
in
think it's daunting?
only 9 words, or as in...
I don't know. I just feel this certain sense of responsibility.
I'll do it. Here, we'll switch. You do the back cover. I'll do 9 words.
No.
He's owning it. I like it.
All right, you do 9 words, and then if it's not good enough, I'll decide that I'll do 9 words.
Rem's rethinking everything right now.
Welcome to The Cover, where 3 Hoosier friends judge books by their covers and movies by their trailers.
That's right. I'm Brett, here with my fellow Indiana natives, Remington and Marcus, ready to dive into the stories that keep us up all night and occasionally put us to sleep.
Whether you're a bookworm, movie buff, or just here for the witty banter, we've got you covered.
Each week, we'll dissect a different book or movie, sharing fun facts, hot takes, and moments that make Marcus cry. Spoiler alert, we're not experts, but we're definitely opinionated.
From literary masterpieces to blockbuster flops, nothing is safe from our snarky reviews and wild tangents. Who knew Hoosiers could be this entertaining?
So grab your popcorn and reading glasses because we're about to embark on a hilarious journey through the pages and screens that shape our lives. Or at least our weekends.
You're listening to The Cover. Let's get the show on the road before one of our kids wakes up. Does anyone have a what's new? I got a what's new.
Hit us. What's new, Rem?
I just went on date night with little Charlie.
And saw Deadpool,
And
I
saw
heard.
Deadpool and Wolverine.
In the family group chat.
Yep.
With Charlie?
Yeah. I basically sent a text saying, I've seen the first Wolverine and I'm sure this is just as good. And I took Charlie to see it.
Sure.
So no, we saw Transformers and it was awesome.
Origin story, right?
It was awesome. It was an origin
yeah.
story. And the thing is, I don't know enough about it to know, but I knew Optimus Prime, Megatron. Is that the other one? The bad guy?
I think so.
We're going to get some hate mail if I'm wrong. But it is so cool. And you can see what's about to happen throughout the whole movie where like they basically grow up as 2 friends and then there's a point in the movie where they don't have any power and the guy that gives them power says, I'm giving you this power. What you do with it will determine your fate. What you do with it will determine good versus evil, essentially. And the one guy was so bitter about what was done to him that he used his power for bad and Optimus Prime used his power for good. But it was great. It was a really good movie. It was definitely one that is cover podcast worthy.
Ooh, I like it.
Do you guys know much about Transformers?
Nope.
Riley, I feel like, is she likes Transformers and she likes Fast and the Furious. Like she's seen all 12. And I don't get the Fast and Furious, but when I've watched Transformers with her, pretty good.
Yeah. No, they're good. I mean,
Shia LaBeouf, right?
Yeah, the original. The original, when they came out.
Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. That's all I remember.
Was original. I don't think Megan was in the second
There's
one.
a bunch more since then, though.
Mark Wahlberg, I think.
Wahlberg was in a couple, the second or third one, I believe. When you go to, is it Universal? I think Universal, they've got Transformers walking around. You can meet Bumblebee and stuff. It's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Is Bumblebee like his car?
Bumblebee
It's
is the
the
car
yellow
that Shia LaBeouf drives.
Yeah,
yes. He'd be he's the one that kind of talks through the radio, through songs.
But I mean, we have a date night, so every other Monday I take one of the girls on date night, and I don't know if I've said this on the show or not, but I want it to be abundantly clear to the first guys that date my daughters how to treat somebody on a date night. So I make that a priority, and every other Monday I take one of them out. We've had some of my best memories with my girls have been on those date nights.
Oh, I bet.
A lot of fun.
How often is a movie in the rotation?
Not very. I mean, I told you guys I don't really watch movies in theaters as much anymore. Just not in the cars.
It's such an event for them at the age they're at right now. That
Totally.
it's
They love it.
So great.
I saw Wonka like 4 times in theaters because
With your kids?
yeah, like because I just kept taking each individual kid
This is Charlemagne.
like out for
Dude,
out for a movie, but because one of them would come back and tell the other one about it, and we'd start listening to the. So I end up spending an absurd amount of money. Well, because we also try to do like date nights with each kid. and there's a million of them.
Dude,
so.
that movie's great, and that soundtrack is great.
You know, the other time that really got me in trouble was when Brett said, "Hey, you know what's a?" I just was like, "Hey, it's date night." I was like, "It's date night, guys." I put on the group text like, "Who has a fun thing to do?" And Brett suggests getting like mani-pedis, which is an awesome date night.
It is.
Right? We go do that. Jessica comes back and tells the girls about it. Immediately then, I take Colby, and then I take Quinn. So in the course of like 2 weeks, I got 3 pedicures. Pretty hilarious.
3 pedicures. Okay, so I'm not being picked up right now. Keep talking.
3
Now's the time.
pedicures in 2 weeks.
There we go.
You know what's also great is, do you do any of the enhancements with the pedicure? Hot stones on your
No,
shins?
I don't really pay for the
Oh,
extras.
yeah.
Dude, they like and they'll like wrap it in like this hot gel situation. Burn your skin off. It's awesome.
I'm just kidding. I definitely have.
I asked for extra stones, please.
Can I get the little pebbles somewhere? Movies. I think I would like to take someone to see Transformers.
It's good.
You've moved me.
It's good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Welcome to the Cover Podcast. One of your hosts right here, Brett Wiggins, as always. To my left, perfectly away from his mic at a volume 6.
Marcus Mangus.
And to my right, off of a fresh full night of reading.
Sir Remington Ramsey.
So much reading.
We're just jacking everyone's in their cars, turning it up and turning it down.
So is that official? Marcus is doing back cover? Is this the thing?
No, he's counting. I could tell. I'll do the
okay.
back cover. We won't screw it up this much. If I'm going to make a bold statement like that, I should come in with 9 words.
Well, he did call your bluff. Rem, what are we covering tonight?
Glad you asked, Brett. Man's Search for Meaning, written by Viktor Frankl, has riveted generations of readers with its descriptions of life in Nazi death camps and its lessons for spiritual survival. In the decades since its first publication, it has become one of the most influential books of America. It continues to inspire all of us to find significance in the very act of living.
Pretty good. Pretty good one.
Pretty good. I would say it's missing something. I think you guys will fill it in. There's definitely 2 acts, I guess, to this book.
Almost 2 different books.
Yeah, I mean, the second one is more of like I don't know, an ebook. It's very short. It's just a description of analytics.
I think the second one was probably more along the lines of his manuscript he kept talking
The
about.
second one feels like it's for psychiatrists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
hey,
very
you're gonna,
There's a
Very
breakdown. Like I
academic.
wrote down the differences between the people at the time that were studied, like Freud, and one other one, like their counterintuitive points to what Frankl said. It's an interesting spelling of a name, by the way. Frankl.
Yeah, it's like it's German.
Frankl.
Frankl.
It's probably German.
Very close to Frankie. Yeah, I got strong. You just took this 101 class. You're going to read this second half of this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. What did
First half though.
Oh, whew. Yeah, I mean, and not even like the second half wasn't bad by any means, just different. First half, yeah. Pretty crazy stories. What do we know going into it? I knew nothing except for that Marcus said, I've been meaning to give you this book. Here it is. Didn't know who Viktor Frankl was. Didn't know that it was about time in a concentration camp. Had never even heard of the book, which shocks me, as popular as it is. Millions and millions and millions have read it. Marcus, what'd you know going into it?
Not a lot. You know, this book was given to me. Is this the first book that none of us have read?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all read this for the first time.
Yeah.
This last week.
For the record, I haven't
read.
read any of the books that we've done, so all first times for me.
Okay.
You never
McConaughey.
Boys in the
McConaughey.
and Grohl.
Oh, all right. No,
Okay.
girl. Yeah, okay.
Cool. Good statement.
This is the
Let's
fourth.
name 4 more.
For the record, Brett's a liar.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, for the record means something new now. You know, for the record. If Brett's saying for the record, Lies ensue.
Wow. No, so what's interesting is I got this book and I was like, the cover, the cover, we judge books by the cover here, right? And I just kind of looked
As
at
you
it
should.
and I was like, I didn't even read the back. I just
pretty
looked
sure
at the
mine
cover.
is more blue. The pink to orange
And we're looking at the
gradient is
90,
definitely-
the version that came out in 92, so there's a couple of extras. But I'm just looking at it, and it's just been sitting there on my shelf. I had 3 copies of it.
Who gave it to you?
We got it at a leadership every year, Wabash.
And so did you know anything about it? Did you read the back cover when you got it, or you just collected books?
I just grabbed some extras from the conference. They had suggested that. I was on like the
They were on the back
committee.
table for sale, and they were left over, and I just
No, they handed these out they handed these out. The guy who wins Man of the Year for the Indianapolis Association of Wabash Men, or I guess it's called the Wabash Club of Indianapolis now. Whoever wins Man of the Year gets to give out a book to all of the attendees.
Oh, that's cool.
And Ryan Vaughn.
I love traditions like that.
Ryan Vaughn, who was with Indiana Sports Corps for a long time, a part of like bringing the Super Bowl here and different things. He won the year that he won. He gave this book out, and I just kind of looked at it and I was like, not for me, and that's it.
Because of the cover.
Because of the cover.
Because of the cover.
And then
Man, you're really
heard-
causing me to quadruple check whatever cover
I
I
heard
yeah, for sure.
I heard someone talk about it, and I was like, oh, I have that book.
I think I have that. Yeah.
And then I started reading some of the back, and I was like, maybe we could do this for the cover.
Man, talk about psychology of a mind and judging a book. Like, we
Yeah.
kind of made a joke when we
literally
made this, but like,
for 3 years.
I definitely
I've had
do
this.
judge books by their covers, or at least what I think about them.
Have you gotten into the how to choose your title portion of your coaching with your book?
I mean, I read the same book you did
Okay.
to determine that, but I already had a strong sense of what the title was going to be going into it, and I just decided to like not put it as a title in case I changed it, but I'm going to stick with it. Why?
Okay.
Is that where you're at?
Well, that's where I'm at, and the book that you're talking about, the A to Z, how to write a book, basically, the title of that book and the cover of that book is just so perfect.
It is. It's very good. It's very well thought out.
It's so, and he walks through
Color
how
scheme and the simplicity of it.
you know exactly.
Do you
what
not
it
want
is.
to tell people what it is?
Well, it's published
Yeah.
by Chandler Bolt.
Yeah.
And it's there's no guessing game. It draws your attention to it. You know exactly what it is right away.
By the way, not to take people away from this podcast, but I did have Chandler Bolt on my other podcast to talk about this. It's really good. He does a really good job of breaking it down.
Real Producers Podcast.
Real Producers Podcast. Chandler Bolt, very easy to find.
Love it. Yeah, but I mean, to your point, Marcus, this guy clearly didn't read published back in 1962.
No, he's not the one that made this cover. This is
this is from
like a
1990.
fifth.
This is at least the 5th time this has been
This is
published.
12 million copies sold. When he originally his manuscript was written on Sanskrit.
Joke to begin with, for the record.
One,
For the
2,
record.
3, 4, 5.
No one asked me
this
what
one
I
looks
thought
like
of
it
this book
came out in
before.
2006.
Oh yeah, he
This
died
one
in
that we have
'92.
this one that we have came out in 2006.
He died in '98. Sorry, he was
So it
92 years
Clearly
old.
a sabotage mission by the new publisher.
So I'm the only one that knew anything about this book going into it.
I did not know anything.
So what
about
did
it.
you know?
So I looked up. I wrote a message. It's got to be 10 years ago about faith and belief in oneself. I even turned it into an ebook. And one of the quotes I used, and I don't know how I found the quote, was one that we'll mention later, and it was by Viktor Frankl. And so whenever I do use a quote in a message, I always do a little bit of research on them, and I found out he was a Holocaust survivor and all these things. And we're going to get into it. Like, what's wild to me is that when people are defined by a single thing in their generation, it strips away who they were outside of that thing. So like, he was a doctor, he was a writer, but he's defined by being a doctor and writer during the Holocaust. You know, this is a very bad example, but you think about the players that played during the time of Jordan, like their greatness, and they're overshadowed by the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, people who did incredible things or you know, incredible feats that were born during the time of Hitler are defined by what that man did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's so sad to me.
Through the scope of how they handled and lived through that time.
Which is exactly what this book is about.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible, pretty phenomenal. And you think about the amount of people that came out telling their stories. And I'm married to someone who reads, I'm not joking, a book a month on the Holocaust, the time of World War II, and a novel by someone who actually interviewed people. So by proximity, I know a lot about these stories.
Yeah, Kelsey's a big World War II fan.
She can't get enough of the research.
Is it World War II, Revolutionary War, or any war that America was
The
involved?
Revolutionary War came before World War II.
For the record?
No. I'm asking.
Because
she loves that too.
No, she doesn't love that. We just were watching that show.
Got it.
I love that.
So she's World War II specific.
I'm more of a Revolutionary War kind of guy.
She didn't like the Revolutionary War. She didn't like the Patriot because there were too many blood squirts.
The blood squirts came from the Patriot. Actually, the Gladiator, I think, is where that originated. But yeah, definitely some blood squirts with that tomahawk. But I'm a Revolutionary War buff, and she's the World War II.
Since the Patriot, I'm definitely I'm getting there.
Have you watched Turn yet? You got to watch Turn.
No, is that is
Turncoats.
the one called Redcoats or no?
No, Turn. It's called Turn.
So
It's the Turncoats. They're the spies.
30-second synopsis, and then Marcus's 9 words. I think he landed somewhere he liked.
I did.
I like it. Make sure you text it to
This
Riley.
tastes like what your grandpa gives you so that you never drink alcohol.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Let's pause.
the more drinks I've been taking, the more I'm like, wow.
It's not one
good.
that you just get
13
used
minutes
to.
ago, you both were like, "Oh, this is kind of
yeah,
good."
the first sip is like, all right, it's different, and then
The more you drink it, it's not good.
So, Marcus, what is the drink for the read tonight?
Well, essentially, it's like schnapps.
Yeah.
It is a.
He's a slave to his microphone.
It's called Fidelity. Man, I'm so bad at Latin. I think this is Latin, or maybe it's German, I guess. Fidelitas Obstler.
That sounds German.
80% apple brandy, 20% pear brandy, which I'm told
Maybe it's apple that I'm getting.
because I can Google that is basically schnapps, and they reference schnapps. It's the only alcohol referenced in this as something that was used.
Very high value trade item.
Yeah, the guards, the capos, all these guys, they all were drinking this. They were drinking all the time to essentially self-medicate, right? Because they're doing awful things to humans. So we've tried it. It's here, but we're probably going to drink the Woodford that he brought down.
No, we're adding Fresca. We're going to power through.
I did keep adding some Fresca.
This is quite the 180. I mean, 10 minutes ago,
The first one was
like,
well, hey, feel free to join us
We
anytime.
were expecting it to be awful, and the first sip wasn't that
I
bad.
tried.
You can't do schnapps?
Brandy, no, not happening.
You get hives? Start saying weird things, like for the record?
Things could get weird. Things could get very,
I'm all
very
for
weird.
things getting weird on this podcast.
Staying committed to my high noon. It's good.
All right, Slam Boy.
Slam time. All right. We are going now. Viktor Frankl, doctor, freedom or parents? Parents in the train. Where are we headed? Auschwitz? Yikes. Can you find something of meaning from any situation? Yep. Fate took over and he let it. Conversations with his dead wife. Refused to give in to hating all Germans. Impressive. If you have something to live for, you tend to keep on living. Second half of the book, lots of doctor talk. Extraordinary man, extraordinary life, impacted millions. There's your 30 seconds of slam. Marcus.
Did you learn about anything that
You need to stop preparing.
So, have you
no.
guys seen, what's it called? Schindler's List. Have you guys seen Schindler's List?
I have.
I've not.
It's been quite some time since
Have
I've
you
seen
seen any movie or read a book that depicted the Holocaust?
Yeah, Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Boy in the Striped Pajamas is probably the most PG version of what happened during that time. Anything? Have you seen anything else? So what I'm getting at,
what's the Adrian Brody or whatever? Not Adrian,
the pianist.
The pianist. So I've seen The Pianist. I've seen Schindler's List. Band of Brothers, man. When they go and let the Holocaust survivors out,
Yeah,
when they let the people
that's
out of
true.
the concentration camps, it's brutal.
Yeah. So there's different scenes depicted, but
Band of Brothers is
HBO.
Give me some. Oh, it's a
it's a
It's
miniseries.
an HBO miniseries. Oh
Um,
man, that is a very good
would you
series.
count Inglorious Bastards? Because
Yeah.
I've seen it, but it doesn't get into that.
I'm just trying to figure out like how much
I
of
don't
this
think
book
there's
was like
any concentration
brand new.
camps.
Like,
I
wow,
would
did not know
say-
that happened.
I would say Jewish involvement within the camps from the capo standpoint. I don't think I fully grasped before. The amount of work they were having Jewish people do, not just there to die. I mean, it was really like, hey, how much physical labor can we get out of these people before
without feeding them.
Yeah. What else?
That one I wrote down too, honestly, is even though I've seen Schindler's List, even though I've seen the Pianist and these other ones, in my head, maybe it's just me hoping that this was, I don't know why it'd be better or worse, but in my head they're just like sitting around almost like they're in prison.
Yes.
And they're not like doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into it, but there
this
was
was basically like slave labor.
100% slave labor, but there was also there were some communal aspects to it. I don't want to overstate that, but there were some, I don't even want to call it normalcy, but there were things that they did in camp that caught me off guard. Like, oh, you guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
Because that's part of how they combated the horrors that they were dealing with.
Yeah. So learn that. The fact that there were doctors there working on, I mean, at least caring for patients in some way, shape, or form. Now,
Wow.
one of the questions I had was like, how sick do you have to be to get into a sick hut?
No,
Like,
so here's what this book left out, and I'm not sure if he even knew about this because they did different things at different camps, and a lot came out after the fact, is that they would use the infirmary as the Germans would use it as like a testing tube.
See
So
that.
like they would cut them open and throw all sorts of stuff in them and then sew them back up to see how the body would respond to all sorts of metals and dirt and all this kind of stuff. So
Hydra.
a lot of people, you know, who survived came out with like really messed up, and they twins, like they would always do tests on twins to see how they different reactions. A lot of really messed up surgeries came out of that time. And so the thing is, there was you ask yourself the question, because there was advancement in medicine during that time, but at what cost? So it's almost like how should we feel about knowing the things we do because of how we got the information?
Oh my gosh.
And think about that.
Yeah. When you said Hydra, that's in one of the Marvel movies, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about Captain America.
But by the way, like,
because Captain America, World War
Yeah.
II, it's the same time period.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously they're taking it from a comic book standpoint.
100%.
However, those kinds of experiments and things were happening on the German side of things.
Yep.
Because they don't view these people as humans.
Right. Not
Right.
viewed as humans at all. So I guess that's one thing that it was like, it wasn't just let's kill the Jews. It was let's get everything we can out of these walking bodies before we, I was going to say expose of them. What word am I looking for? Dispose of them?
They really didn't view them as human
No.
You
No.
couldn't.
in order to do the things you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which how much brainwashing has to happen. I've brought this movie up a couple times on this show, but All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Like, you got to watch
That's
that
World War
movie.
I.
And you got to watch it on Netflix, and you got to watch it with the dubbing. But like, it is World War I, but that's where it starts, because that's where Hitler's
You could read the book.
birthed out of. Yeah. I mean, just
Quiet on the Western Front.
it's insane the what happens. Like, if you watch even like the reels that come out of that movie, it's like the first half of the movie is how excited they are to be a part of something, and at the end of the movie how depressed they are because they were basically bamboozled by the German government.
This is the one with AI dubbing you've talked about before?
They all have AI dubbing now, but this is the one I watched with AI dubbing on Netflix, where it was it's shot in German.
When I watched it in German, but I watched
with subtitles. Yeah, you don't have to watch it with dubbing. It was just the first time I'd watch it. It's just wild. It's so cool.
Let's dig in.
You don't want 9 words?
Oh,
I for one would like, for the record, I would like 9 words.
Let's do it. 9 words.
I feel like Brett always forgets me. Okay, here we go. Psychiatrist enters concentration camps, but chooses to find meaning.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
Concentration is 1 word, 3 syllables.
It feels full.
Yeah, you can get a lot. You can get a lot of mileage with 3-syllable words.
Rem, could you have marveled that one, or was that?
Oh man, mine would have been way better, but I didn't want to embarrass him on his own podcast.
It's good. That's real good.
Congrats on having your own podcast, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm the only one here without my own podcast.
You can claim this one. It's fine.
Okay.
What made us stop, think lots, obviously, on this list?
We already started diving in right away.
We did. There's no need to wait. The foreword, so listening to the foreword versus reading the foreword, I forgot what parts of the foreword intro were from somebody else and not from him, because like based on the version that you read or the edition that you read.
And we are reading the one that's published, I was wrong, in 2006.
Got it. So I think they've really added stuff to each of them. They've kind of added some new voices from the field. But it talks about in the intro or forward or whatever about a businessman who after retirement loses their meaning of their life. Work had been their meaning up until that point. And man, that's like definitely something that I've watched retired people struggle with who have made work their everything.
Yeah.
A lot of them come out of retirement.
Yeah, and then they'll come out of retirement or go absolutely crazy and not do anything with it. And I think it really does support his thought of like, hey, we got some scores going on.
Don't worry about it.
I can see Monday nights is going to be a challenge for you.
We're recording during not a double header, but really
I'm good. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna be in the top 6. So.
We got 2 Monday night football games tonight and lots of fantasy football implications.
I was just surprised, and this isn't gonna come out for like 3 weeks, so it's gonna. But I just looked down and I was surprised that Washington was winning 14-7. So that was the look.
Dude, I said Daniels. I think he's gonna be all right. It's gonna be pretty good. However, I think it supports his idea that having meaning to your life is really maybe most important thing that you could have figured out or striving for. He goes into a lot more details, but came right out of the gates with that. I thought it was good to start with.
The first thing I remember writing down, like stopping in my tracks, shoot, I got to write this down, even though the entire preface is really strong, was his reaction. He says, doesn't matter. Each one of us was nothing more than a number. And that's what kind of defined the whole first part of the book for me, is like, that's how the SS saw them. That's how a lot of them saw themselves in that camp. And it just got me thinking, like, aside from all the psychology that we're going to talk about, what the search for meaning, and he defines it is 3 different things. But if you're not psychoanalytic and trying to figure out in your own brain what's keeping you going, what is keeping you going? Like, is it, I think there's a chance this world war will end because they're not getting any information. It's not like they get a newspaper or have internet. Yeah. They're there, and that is their reality day in and day out. So you have got to believe that it will get better, or that it can't get any worse and I can get used to this. And those are not great options with what they were dealing with.
No, I mean, I thought it was fascinating. You've hit on this a couple of times, that he was initially not going to publish this under his own name.
Yeah.
It was going to be anonymous. It was just going to be his number.
Yeah.
Right? And what I find really interesting is that what the Germans or what the Nazis did is stripped everything away from them.
The hair on their
matter,
bodies.
It didn't matter what you were. You were literally just a number. So you get stripped down to nothing, and then you've got to search for meaning.
Yeah.
And
that's why
he's in this unique place, which is why he ends up publishing it with his name, right? He refers to himself as psychoanalyst, which I think is what they used to call just a psychiatrist. So I'm just going to say psychiatrist, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. But he's a trained psychoanalyst, psychiatrist who then gets put into a concentration camp. He's already created this work that he plans to share with everyone, right? He's already created that work, and it's going to be the defining moment of his career up to that point, and then he gets stripped of everything. And then he has the wherewithal to be examining himself and others throughout his time and afterwards. And I just think that that's fascinating. Like of all the things that I've read from a World War II perspective, I've never seen it from this angle.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but the reason he chose to do that was because he didn't want the success of the book to be dependent on the author, is what he said, right? Like, he didn't want the success of the book to be dependent on who wrote it, but then he realized that counterintuitively, the person who wrote it gives it clout, gives it, I actually know what I'm talking about.
That's what it ended up being.
And that's why he ended up putting his name on it, because I am a doctor, I know.
He is a psychiatrist.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So if I don't put that, then who's going to read this? Because they're going to think it's just not valid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, Marcus, he talks about how he basically, in really tough times, would just kind of step out of whatever situation he was in, and he would be analyzing it completely objectively, and it wasn't even like he was experiencing it. It was like he was analyzing himself, experiencing it, and everything going around him. It really was a unique situation for him to be a psychiatrist, and it sounds like a good and respected one as well, and then get into this situation.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about him in terms of the psychiatry field at the time. And he certainly
if he was like a big deal or not.
Well, he certainly clearly had disagreements with whether it was like Freud or Nietzsche or whoever. Like he used some of their things, but he clearly disagreed. And in some ways, like this was him saying, "Hey, I think that there's."
Yeah, it's definitely a response to
this.
Freud. Some of his thoughts on love is definitely a response to Freud.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, what was Logotherapy was his bread and butter. That was what he believed was.
Yeah, which really I think came out of
I think
his
he created
experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he created logotherapy.
Yeah.
From
Another
what I
thing
can tell.
with them stripping everything down that came out in the book was because everything was stripped down, they couldn't find meaning in any of these other passions. He talks about literally sitting in God's creation and noticing things for the first time because it was all there was to notice. It sounds like a lot of these individuals in the camp really did have a deeper spiritual connection to God because there's no distractions.
No other options.
There's no other option.
Yeah.
And he does a fascinating job, even though he's clearly Jewish, he clearly has faith, of like not making it too religious, the book itself. Like he defines spirituality within the book as it's kind of broad.
Yeah, broad. And do you think that was intentional, or do you think that's just?
I think it's intentional because he wants it to be accepted.
I think as a doctor, you probably have to view things through that lens regularly. Anyway, I don't know if this stuck out to me more than it did for you guys, but it sounds like when they're heading to wherever they're heading, they know Auschwitz is a place you don't want to go. And when they finally realize that's where they're going, can you imagine? Not just are you like, you're going somewhere horrible, but then out of all of the camps that you could be going, you're looking at. He talks about like if you had a good spot, you could see out of the window of these trains.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden realizing that's where you're headed.
Just your heart dropping.
Oh my gosh. And not only that, but then you're around so many other people that are experiencing the same thing. And I don't know.
You know what,
man.
though, to your point, Brett, you were talking about like how he viewed his surroundings. Like he almost viewed it as like his time at camp was like a game of research versus like survival. Like for him, and I wonder
He
about
found meaning in the
he found
research.
meaning in it. Like he found like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. Like this really sucks, but let's get outside of it for a second and really analyze this. Like I think that almost gave him meaning for himself. Is like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
100%. Toward the end of the book, he talks about people that are about to commit suicide. And he talks about the
Smoking
way to get them out
cigarettes.
of it was to get them to realize that there's still things for them to accomplish in their life that others are depending on. And I think, he really believed this manuscript was going to have a pivotal impact on people.
One of the ways he said, this must have been really eerie once you picked up on this, but he said that you mentioned earlier that cigarettes was the currency, right? So if you had cigarettes, you could trade them for.
Yeah, you didn't smoke them.
You didn't smoke them.
You
You
traded
only
them.
smoked
Like a
them
cup
if
of
you
soup
were
or
giving up.
something.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like the eerie thing is, if you saw a Jew smoking a cigarette, it means they were at the end of their rope and they were giving up. And so that must have been, once people figured that out, it must have been pretty eerie to walk past someone knowing that they have given up and wondering what you should say or if you're going to say anything at all.
But I found it so believable that once it was clear somebody gave up, it's almost like it was a cue to their body that it was like, all right, it's time. Because he said within 48 hours, usually, of them smoking that cigarette, not going to work that day, whatever, it was within 48 hours, it was done. And I know there's movies that have that, like, I think of, did you ever see Patch Adams?
Oh yeah.
Great movie, but laughter's kind of in this hospital and helping people and their attitude, and it's like, is that real, or do we just think it's real and it feels good? Like clearly
It's
that's real. Yeah, clearly it's real.
It's very real. I mean, and so is family, by the way. Having someone there, like having people around that you're living for. I was actually reminded of Keith McCurdy, Brett, like when he came and he spoke. He's a therapist, and he came and spoke at our school last year, and he told us this story about a guy who had everything in the world, had grown up like this, like one of like savant level smart, and so from an early age was just coddled and had been given everything and made, millions and millions upon millions of dollars, and always had servants doing everything for him, and came to the appointment in super crazy expensive car and said, "Hey, I'm here because if this doesn't work, I'm going to kill myself."
Wow.
And he tried everything else, and somebody said, "I heard that you do things differently." Right? And Keith listens to him, and he says, "All right, I want you to go home and commit to making dinner every single night for your family this week." And this guy gets angry.
Yeah, he's
like mad.
upset.
Like, that's your advice? That's the thing that you're going to tell me that I have to do? I thought that you were good at this, But he says that he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And comes back a week later in a different, like, absurdly expensive vehicle. And he drove like 2 hours to get there.
Yep.
And he said that even though he can't cook and burned everything, and his wife by like night 3 was begging him not to do it, what he realized was the burden that he is on other people, and that he'd never done anything for anyone else. And so then he was like, okay, like, well, maybe I should mow the yard, or like, so what he was able to then find meaning in was serving and helping other people, right? But he had never had that before, and that's why he was so depressed.
Wow. Life is about him.
This reminded, like, that message rang throughout this entire book. I felt like was that if it's just about you, dude, you're gonna go and commit. You're gonna go to that fence and you're gonna put your finger on it or whatever, and you're gonna commit suicide.
Well, yeah, he even talks about there was a legit escape attempt that he was minutes away from doing, and last second he turned away and was like, "No, I can't leave my patients.
These people in this infirmary are counting on me."
Well, he had already escaped.
Right. It was like
He had escaped, and they came back, and then he saw the faces, and that's what made him stay. So before we even got there, there was a quote that, as he was explaining, this was in the very beginning, he was trying to explain to us how unbelievable it was to him that was actually happening at these camps. And he said, we were constantly being sorted. We get our tattoo early, and then we get sorted, and we get shipped to different places. And then there's someone standing there, and they say, this one goes left, this one goes right.
Yep.
And then when you go right, you wonder where your buddy's going, and they're all the ones that were going left. And when I asked somebody, they said, you want to know where your buddy went? And he pointed to the chimney across the street of where people were being burned. And he said he had to ask over and over again what that meant because it was so unbelievable. He's like, really explain it to me because the words aren't making sense. So it's like when they first got there and you think about like the progression, that's why I said this really started in World War I. World War I, they were already starting to show their true colors. Hitler's birth and really just, and there's lots of theories on, I mean, tons of books written on Hitler, but no matter what you see, you still don't believe the next thing that happens because it's so unbelievable. That's what I think
we have a deep belief too in like most people are doing the right thing and we're gullible in that way. Like we want to believe in
can't be that evil.
Yeah, can't be.
Well, but you know, like Germany coming out of World War I was in a depression. They had no money. They had no anything.
They got beat up.
Right? It was terrible.
I'm saying they needed something to.
Well, this is how cults happen. This is how leaders like Hitler rise up. It's because people need some sort of meaning in their life, right? And if they've got nothing, and if they've got no hope, and if someone's coming to them and they're saying, we're going to be the greatest country in the world, and even worse is like the reason that we're not is because of these people.
Yeah, they're the reason.
And they're the reason. Well, now, like, okay, well, I'm feeling this way because of them, right? It's not.
I've never seen a movie.
It's crazy hard to see how like these leaps can happen.
I've never seen a movie that really shows the depiction of like the beginning of that, though. The beginning of camps. You always see a movie when it starts where they've already been built. I'd really like to see the year in which it felt like, okay, now we're really just imprisoning people because of their nationality. Or
How
their
they
culture.
go from 0 to 100.
Yeah,
right?
like because like even Schindler's List, there's already these camps being built.
So your
There's
belief is
already-
it didn't start this way. It started as a. We don't want them around. Whatever. Maybe this was a criminal or whatever the case.
It
may
started
be.
as systemic racism. Like
Yep.
it started as like we're going to have a double standard. We're going to imprison people that we really don't like based on their heritage, and then get more loose with what we're imprisoning people for to the point where now we're just imprisoning Jews.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wrote this down. How quickly did the SS guards have to get drunk with power to not make sense of anything? Like, you go from enjoying your power and being ruthless about it to the point where now you're just drunk with being a sadistic ruler. Because he would say, like, the examples were, like, he'd say, you guys aren't helping each other, you're worthless, you're pigs. And then he'd turn around 5 minutes later and beat them for helping each other. Like, now it's a psychological game. And it's all of them. It's all of them. And then, like, the rarity is the guard who has a conscience and decides to help them, which he wrote a little bit about. But for the most part, they were all just drunk on power and cruelty. How do you get an entire army to be like that?
Well, I think it has to be tribalism. Like it has to be us versus them, right? If there's no us versus them,
they would be doing this to us if we weren't.
There's no enemy. Yeah. If they're the ones who are the problem, right? Then they need to be put down, right? And because if we don't, because we're going to die if we don't put them down, right? That's
fear.
That's ultimately what it comes down to, I think. And so, and then once you've got that power, you're going to do everything you can to stay in that power. And you got all this money, and they were building beautiful buildings, and they were put in all these positions. Like, I mean,
now you've got a standard of living you got to keep up.
Yeah,
the way to do
fear
it.
was the word that popped in my head when you asked the question. I didn't know if that was the answer, but yeah.
Fear of the soldier for like not doing their job.
Fear of if we don't do this,
They'll take over.
then they're
So I'm going to suppress them in any way I can.
Yeah. And then
At some point, though, you got to look at a 100-pound man and be like, "There's nothing this guy's going to do to me if there's no way they can overtake us." At some point, you got to look at the cruelty. Like,
well, they
this
don't,
is
they
just
don't fear
cruel.
them at that point.
So that's what I'm saying. So they're just too far gone at that point. They're gone, and that's when they start drinking to ease the pain.
They're not fearing that the Jews are going to take over. They're fearing that the Jews being there is what caused the problem to begin with, and they don't want the inbreeding, and they don't want all of this stuff.
And I think too, like, it's like, hey, to your point, Marcus, things were horrible. This dude Hitler takes over and things are starting to get good. Everything he said to do has turned into gold. Let's just pour it on.
And I'm not enough of a history buff, like,
Yep.
especially when it comes to, 19...
Great opportunity for a guest host,
1930s.
Kelsey Ramsey. But
Yeah,
Hey, if she
Kelsey
comes down.
Ramsey or Elliot Allen or something, they're going to listen to this and they're going to say, you guys are so wrong. But but
Have we gotten any emails lately,
I'm
Brett?
just thinking that, like, philosophically,
yeah.
right? The rise and I think the danger in Marxist thinking is the us versus them, the power dynamics.
Yep.
And that's what all of this comes out of.
Yep.
And if it's us versus them, Hitler used that to control people, right? And he did it very, very well.
When you say right at the end of a sentence, is that because you want us to believe what you're saying, or because you want to hit
I'm
us with
making
it?
sure that you're tracking with me. That's
Right.
it.
That's like his who'd we
Yes
script?
or yes?
No, who'd we script training?
Justin Donald.
And what would he always say?
Oh man,
Does that make sense?
Does that make
Does that
sense?
make sense?
That poured all the way down to Nadine,
Oh
my
man,
and that got me. Yeah.
Oh, does that make sense?
And then
I
it
can't
would,
believe
and it would get whiny.
that I sat and
Does that
rewound
make sense?
and typed out.
Hey, you're better
all
for
of
that. Okay, so in a past episode, you talk about detasseling corn and how you didn't learn anything from that. That's a load of crap. You learned so much from detasseling corn and working hard and waking up every single day, working for minimum wage. You appreciate so much. You understand.
I would equate it to my time drilling holes into the same piece of metal at the same hole drilling station that I.
You talking about in shop class?
No, at my
Factory?
my uncle's worked at Bennington Marine, so I would work there during their winter shutdown, and I did that for 2 weeks straight. And you know what I learned? That I never want to freaking do this again, and I'm gonna go find a new job. So you probably did.
You know what though? That's
Valuable.
learning.
Yeah, 100%.
He's not joking.
Also-
like that's learning.
Also, all of that type of work, like the farm work and everything else, in a very similar way to like everything that these guys did, right? Like it's like I those kinds of things make me like when people say, "Oh, Marcus, you work really hard." I'm like, I don't think I do. Like
because you have worked hard.
We need to define working hard.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not putting in, I might be putting in the mental effort, or I might be trying to be a better leader or whatever, but like in terms of just like hard work, what I do doesn't compare.
It is pretty interesting. The bar is set low.
Like farmers and everything.
The bar is
else.
set low in America, is set low probably across the world. But like if you think about, I just interviewed a guy that was an immigrant from India, then England, and here. And the whole time I was talking to him, he was talking about how Americans don't appreciate the American dream. It's not even Americans. Americans don't even know what the American dream is anymore. Immigrants who've seen it on the other side come over and they just cannot grasp how we don't take advantage of what's in front of us.
We have a Nigerian family at our school
Yeah.
And they could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
And hours about how.
So how do you respond to that? How do you? I mean, I feel like we do a good job in our families, but as a society, how are we leaders in a society to explain to people that by not taking advantage of what's in front of us, we're slothful?
Well, that's the thing is he says this in the book at some point in time. He's like, I always feel like the Statue of Liberty should be on the East Coast and the Statue of Responsibility should be on the West Coast, right? It's like, if you've got all of this freedom, well, you also have the freedom to be slothful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you also have the freedom to not do, like, but if there's a responsible aspect to it, you know, if you're brought up into some sort of tradition, if you're brought up like, hey, you need to play a part in this society and be a leader in this society, and you need to be brought into that conversation. It's important to be educated. It's important to contribute. Well, then great. But if you're just going to take, you can do that too. You can.
Brett, you've been working with 18 to 20-year-olds for 17, 18 years. Mm-hmm. And you've seen, back when we started, we would have been that age when we started. Do you notice any difference in the last couple decades of the kids that you're recruiting and the mentality coming in? Or has it always been this way? Or is it getting worse?
I think post-COVID is the only change I can say that I've seen that is like, okay, that's not parenting. That's their experience in learning.
How so? Like, what's happening?
So you experienced it when you spoke to my group, where they don't verbally respond in a group, in a message. They're used to being like, they grew up for a 2-year period where they were looking at a screen and there was no interaction when they were learning something. So, and I was like, man, I need to learn how to speak to them differently. No, they would come up afterwards with some amazing questions, and I would look at their notes, and they'd be retaining this information.
Do you think it's important then? Is it important for them to respond?
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you as a speaker. So here's what I'll say. As a speaker, I wish they did.
Yes,
I don't know. I don't know if I can go so far as to say they need to, but I feel like it'd be pretty easy for you to say, hey, if you want to be a future speaker, learn how to be a listener first and really engage with your face and your.
Yeah. So
but I don't know if that's important. I feel like it's fun and it's nice for us.
You're going to be selling something
for sure, but I think about people who watch funny movies and don't laugh, and at the end they're like, "That was so funny." Like, I've done that.
It's for me. It's a ego check of, I need to stop being so worried about them. So I think that's how I view it. To your original question, though, I think parenting has slowly gotten to the point where we're not instilling the same principles that we were really drilled home to us when we were younger, and probably even more so. It's been a slow drip of losing that because life has gotten easier for everybody. Life has just gotten easier. It's not even normal to be like, yeah, I'm going to go find a summer job. That's not normal necessarily anymore.
The John Crisp joke about growing up in the 90s, being a 90s kid, and Nate Bargatze, there's two jokes about this, but basically, like, parenting, there was no, like, he talks about parents today where kids having a meltdown, and he goes, "Tell me your truth."
Well, I think
he's like, "No, man, I got smacked on the head in public, and everyone was cool with it."
Yeah.
I think is the biggest thing plaguing our society, is just this idea that we're all, each of you is your own little individual, and you each have your own little truth, and the world is about you. Well, that's the reason why we've got such high levels of anxiety and depression and everything else in this world. Because
and then we give them a pill.
If the world is not about you, and it's about everyone else, it's about being a part of that, it's about finding your part in that, it's about finding your meaning.
Yeah. How many times did our
this entire book is about, by the way?
How many times do your parents say you're in your own little world? Like, that was a phrase. You're in your own little world, and that was like not a good thing.
It was not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Correct.
The world is bigger than you, bro.
There's got to be a foundation.
Now it's like we
built.
encourage them.
Yeah. Well, no, it's
What
not.
is
It's
that?
not. Hey, I'm not gonna give you a firm foundation to live on. I'm going to allow you as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old to tell me how I need to parent you, because every kid's different.
How can the adult that subscribes to that not foundationally know that if the kid starts focusing on others over themselves, good things will happen for everyone? How is that not a foundational?
Because they're being like, we're all being told that what we need to do is let the kid like find their own way or direct what they're doing or whatever. Like that's the primary message. Right?
Find your own way?
Find your own truth.
I think it comes down to just weakness. Just not willing to piss off your kid. And we need to be very willing to upset our children because they don't know what's best.
Correct.
Like, what are we doing? You know? What are we doing? We're parenting. We're rearing them. We're disciplining them.
Let's bring it back to the book a little bit here.
I like it.
Okay, so something that made me think that I think it just is a theme throughout the book, and I can point out multiple examples of this, is how often he just focuses on something that he only, like, I'm only going to worry about what the thing is that I can control, and most often that's his attitude, right? But like this starts with that
in response.
This starts with that first example that you talked about, Remington, where it's either left or right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's when I first wrote it down. But then
the sorting.
Yep, the sorting. But then he hits on it at least.
So let me clarify. You're saying
times.
Your response to being sorted left or right?
Yeah, he's basically, the way he describes it is he's not worried about it because he can't.
I can't control.
He can't control it, and he doesn't actually know
which one is which.
Yeah, which one is which.
And one of the times he ends up in the wrong group, and they're like, "Oh yeah, go back to the original group. You're good." Like, he literally completely leans into this is up to fate.
And they didn't even know he was missing.
No, not at all. Also, to that point, Marcus, in choosing what to worry about, I find him like finding hope in weird places. It actually, have you ever heard those stories about like Michael Jordan making up things in his head to get an edge?
Lying to himself. Like, so-and-so coach said whatever. We talked about that in A Knight's Tale when he's about to go through and they're like, yeah, the guy you're about to joust raised taxes on his lands and starves his people.
So as soon as he gets to Auschwitz, he sees healthy prisoners and he's like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like, I've got hope that everything's going to be fine at this camp. He has this way of finding hope anywhere he ends up.
Well, and so we haven't talked about this, and I know, Marcus, you're going somewhere, but like, to talk, the reason why healthy prisoners was a big deal is because he talks about living off of a piece of bread every 3 to 4 days.
5 ounces.
of bread
over 4 days.
Over 4 days.
It's ridiculous how little food they were getting.
And what's interesting is how the body like responds to that. It creates its own protein. It finds ways to survive. Have we talked about? I think in a previous episode we did, but Kevin James.
Yes,
who lost all
30
that.
days he fasted.
41 days. 41 days he fasted, and his body just basically used the fat that was stored.
Just starts eating fat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly a way to do it. Here's what he said, and I think this is, you're talking about the last piece of bread that they would give away or whatever. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I just, like, that is a freedom that we all have no matter what. And if someone in a concentration camp who hasn't eaten can choose to give away their last piece of bread, or they can choose to do that, or they can choose to stay with a group even though they think that they're going to die because that's the group that that's their friends, or that's who's counting on them or whatever. Well then, like, whatever little problem you're having, like, you can choose your attitude. You can choose your attitude in any given circumstance.
Reminds me of Unbroken too. where you're not
Very
going to
similar.
break me. David Goggins, you can't hurt me.
Yeah, I've always said influence over control. Like, hey, I don't actually control anything, but I can influence everything. This book definitely made me walk back on, like, okay.
Yep.
Maybe I got a little soft on that. Like, this is proof that no matter what circumstance I'm in, I absolutely can make my own personal decisions and choose what my attitude
That is what you can control.
Yeah.
Like, you can control how you respond and what your attitude is. A little bit later down the page, fundamentally, therefore, any man can, even under such circumstances, decide what shall become of him mentally and spiritually. He may retain his human dignity even in a concentration camp. And that's a choice. That's something you can control. You can maintain that dignity if you choose to.
I remember going on missions trips and seeing the kids that were homeless and had nothing except for a busted up soccer ball that was made out of, whatever they could find, and how excited they were to have that soccer ball. That's all they had. And how simple it was to share the gospel with somebody who didn't have things that got in the way. And like, that's the number one thing I felt like when I came back to the States, is keeping people from God, is materialism, is the ability to buy whatever over and over again, that drip to make me happy or find meaning or joy. So at the beginning of the book, when
dopamine hit.
he talks about being able to be one with God in a place like this, you could make the argument, if you think about eternity and the depth of eternity and how we're all here for 100 or less years, and you were born during the time of the Holocaust as a Jew, the insignificance of the time that we're here on earth, except for what you do with that time, and being put in that position, being stripped of all the materialism that could potentially keep you from eternal salvation, almost as being a gift over someone who had everything on this world and nothing in the next. So you don't want to diminish anything that anyone went through, because there's pain and they're always going to remember that. It's not like the memories wiped away. At least that's not how I understand heaven. But the pain, he wrote a lot about pain. In fact, one of my quotes that I wrote down is, the most painful part of beatings was the insult that it implied.
Yeah.
Did you read that? Did you catch that?
I did.
It wasn't the pain of the beatings as much as it was the fact that it was stripping you of your human dignity.
Yeah.
What was so neat about him is, he made it clear that he did not hold it against the Germans afterwards. He called it collective guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's anybody that wants to blame anybody else for their circumstances, you can't read this book and feel that way. You just can't. You cannot read this book and choose to blame anyone else for what you've got going on, or blame your circumstances. He keeps coming back to its choices on how you're choosing to view it, but also how you're choosing to respond to it. Super, super powerful.
So I thought this was really good. One of the best pieces of advice that he got. And so this is now becoming a theme, I think, within this podcast, but a big truth that's been coming out as I've been reading these different things and we've been writing it down. Do you guys remember one of the most important pieces of advice that he got from one of the older prisoners?
Nope.
I don't.
He said, whatever you do, shave daily. Right? So this reminded me of like Alan Alda's dad telling him to look for spots, or like these different,
dry socks.
These different little things. The dry socks. This is, he says, you need to look fit.
Mm-hmm.
You need to look young.
Mm-hmm.
So shave, whether it's a bit like it's a
Practical
bit of
advice
glass,
for your situation.
It's a bit of glass that you find somewhere. You don't have a razor, whatever it is. Figure out a way to shave daily. Because if they see you as old, or if they see you as incapable, you are going to be next. You're going to be killed. And I just thought that was so profound. And, you know, it's completely inconsequential comparatively. But, you know, when people are sending their kids to kindergarten for the first time, I'm kind of at this spot in my life now where people ask me if I've got any advice on that, right? They're sending their kids to kindergarten for the first time. And my biggest piece of advice for them is always like, have snacks for them when you pick them up. Like, that's it. That's all I say. And they're like, huh? Like, all the things that you could have said, and that's what you say? I'm like, yeah,
that's pretty practical.
They've been, well, because those kids have been on all day in a way that they've never been before. They don't know what it's like, and they're going to get in that vehicle with you, and you're the safe place, and they are going to break down. And if you've got some snacks for them, it sure helps.
Man.
And it's like, but that's like,
if you've ever been on the receiving end of a irrational breakdown from a 6-year-old, you're like, where's my snack?
well, this is how I deal with Remington most of the time. Is if he's like going
Dude,
off
you
the
haven't brought me a
rails,
snack in a long
I just
time.
get him a snack.
I would love a snack.
Yeah, that first week from whatever they do, full day, for us it's been pre-K, but yeah, it's a long, they're like falling asleep after yelling and crying for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's just passed out.
Rose is in pre-K?
She was last year. But
okay. So is she in kindergarten now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a full day. It's just that first month of, 8 hours.
But when I tell people that, I get the same kind of look. Like, I imagine somebody, you're in this concentration camp, and they're like, what's the biggest key to staying alive? And he's like, shave daily.
Well,
no matter what you do, shave.
Beyond the survival, it's like, to his point earlier, you're not going to take my dignity from me.
That's a good point, too.
Like, just, I can still, I'm in control.
I can control how I look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm in control of that. I have a question that will shift gears a little bit, but I don't want to shift unless you guys are ready to.
Shift away, my man.
We can
he talks about going to art shows at the concentration camp, and how there would be prisoners that would literally miss their daily bread ration to go to this show and watch whatever was there to watch, to laugh, to cry, whatever. It just, I don't know, it made it so real for me of like, these people still had a life. Like, and the ones that viewed it that way.
You mean within the camp?
Yeah.
Well, they weren't going to art shows necessarily, right? They had their like little plays, and they would sing like songs.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Like
that's
that.
exactly what, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
Artistic.
When you say
displays.
art show, I think I'm going to a show to
Well,
look at
I'm very
paintings.
well-rounded when I say art. It
Yeah,
could be a million
could
different
be.
things. Marcus, but,
Well, I just
not all of us.
They had-
Art is whatever we believe it is today. You guys should just Google what modern art is.
I understand that not everybody was
people
the lead
screaming in the
actor
middle
in
of a
many
room.
shows growing up.
I
but-
think that art can absolutely be like getting up on stage or doing these things. So they were
like you and Peter Pan in tights.
I was never Peter Pan. Usually Peter Pan is played by a girl.
You were the
Thank
tree.
you.
You were Tinkerbell?
Yeah, typically Peter Pan is played by a girl.
Really?
That's why I said you were Peter Pan in tights.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, in these concentration camps, they would have these like shows at night, even though they were tired, even though they were hurting, even though they had no food, because it was the humor and it was the art, and it made them feel human to laugh at something, or to laugh at their situation, or to be entertained.
That was believable. What was interesting to me is when he talked about when they first arrived at camp, stripped down naked, got shaved, and then they were sent to the showers. And they start laughing because what else are you going to do? It's better than crying. And it's, we don't know what's happening, but at least this is water.
Gas.
Yeah, at least this is water and not gas. And they start laughing. Like, that's
have you guys
deep.
ever had like a near-death type experience before?
I haven't. I'm trying to remember what they were. It's usually like...
So, for me...
First of all, you and I both did. Do you remember this? On the way to Olean? This is really not that funny.
Well, when
you were driving, yeah.
And
so
Marcus
I look over.
Marcus has many
sleeping,
horrible Olean experiences.
So
Yes, I
we're
do.
driving
Wednesday, by the way.
We're driving on a 12-hour trip. Is it 12 hours?
First of all, by the way, this was nowhere near
from
near
Indy.
death.
From Indy,
Yeah.
it's like
What?
It's well,
Just
here's the
because I was falling asleep behind the
Okay,
wheel.
okay.
doesn't
We
mean
go
that
in the fall now, so it's a 9-hour
didn't
trip.
almost die.
It was
when we went in the spring. It was like winter. It could
Yes,
turn into
it was
a 12-hour
winter.
trip very quickly.
It was winter, so like there's ice and there's thin lanes. I'm falling asleep. We're in the tail end of this in New York, and I look at Marcus, and he's driving, and I go, "You good, bro?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good. You can sleep." And I kid you not, I look at the clock. Within 2 minutes, I go, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, "Whoa, Marcus, Megan, wake up!" And he had fallen asleep in that time. I'm like, "You're not good, bro. Don't say good, bro."
I thought I was. But anyway,
It's a miracle we're here, Mom.
Okay, that one.
Thanks for listening.
That wasn't even the worst Olean experience that I had driving wise. Nick and I drove back in a complete whiteout.
Oh yeah, I
A
remember.
complete whiteout
You guys left the night before
in Brett's car.
Yeah, to get home early. You guys
Yeah.
left the night before, and we left the next morning, probably 12 to 14 hours
A
after.
lot
you.
later.
And we got back 3 hours after you.
It was that was awful. The time that I was going to talk about was also in a car, and I was reminded of this weekend when we went to Turkey Run. I was a freshman in college, and we went to go do I think it was like I am canoeing or something, like intramural canoeing, and I'm driving back. And there's all these roads for some reason in Montgomery County and in Park County that just in the middle of the country just have L's, right? And I've
with
got
no signage.
no, yeah, and it's not like these are before you had your GPS that's showing you like where you're going, and you know it's fields like the fields are high at the time, and we're going down these country roads, and I've got a Sebring coupe, like it's pretty fast.
I ran into the back of that Sebring.
You did.
Yep.
It's pretty fast, and all of a sudden this 90-degree turn comes up on us, and
Find yourself in the cornfield.
my car made the turn,
Okay.
but we stopped and we didn't flip. We thought we were gonna flip. We thought we were gonna be in the cornfield. I have no clue how my car made that turn.
Jesus, take the wheel.
But we came to a complete stop. And we both were like sure that we were going to get in a very bad car accident seconds earlier.
Yeah.
And all we could do was laugh.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we just maniacally so
Yeah.
laughed. And I wonder if this is kind of similar where like
Yeah.
you think you're going to die.
So
Like
it's
you get to Auschwitz.
it's relief almost, a relief
you get
laugh.
to Auschwitz. And no matter what you say, you're there and you know that people are going to die.
Man, you
And
know what?
Think about this. You're going into the shower and the water turns on and it's just water.
I think they stole this in Schindler's List. I think there's a scene where they laugh in the water. Now
Makes
that I
sense
think
now
about
that
it.
you're explaining like those types of situations.
Yeah.
Where, it's just an outpouring of emotion you don't know what to do with, without a doubt. I wrote down a note about how he talks about humor being the key to something.
Well, it's one of the
Page 43.
Oh, maybe it's a quote.
I think page 43 I wrote down with this point. Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation.
Yeah. It's hard. Like, there's people that write books about stuff, and you're like, oh, that's an interesting take. Like, this dude lived it at such a deep level. It's hard not to just be like, yeah, you're right.
It wasn't just humor, though, and I think another one of my points goes along with this, is that he said that they talked a lot about politics and religion. Right? And it was the people, and that's why I say like broadly.
It makes sense why though.
Broadly spiritual, right? The politics was the hope piece of it because they were debating all of these things, right? And it was a lot of like smart people, learned people that were there in these concentration camps. A lot of them. And so they're having these debates and they're talking about politics and they're talking about religion. They're saying these prayers, they're going in these different huddles and things. It's just interesting to me that when everything is stripped away, what you talk about the things that you're not supposed to talk about.
Exactly.
You know?
Because who cares?
right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, but it was art, it was politics, it was religion, and the people that didn't have those things didn't make it. And to me, like, no matter what you're going to do within society, that's the beauty of the liberal arts. That's the beauty of what we do with this podcast, by the way, is we read all of these different stories. We watch these different movies that are expressions of what people think. I'll forever be a proponent of a liberal arts education, right? And to me, that's why. Is because if you know these things, if you have these things, if you have this well of things to draw on, that can't be taken from you.
Yeah, tell me about your education, Brett. How do you feel like you can draw on their liberal arts?
Liberal arts, 2 words.
What do you draw? What do you draw on, Brett?
Well, I didn't have that in high school. I got it in college.
But Brett hasn't gotten it, and that's what we're all sad
each of
about.
our kids is getting a liberal arts
This
education.
podcast is actually your guys' you're helping me.
Attempt to educate.
This is you're helping me.
Educate yourself. I'm literally shaking.
He talks a lot about boredom in the second half, and I thought this was a really I think it speaks to what we were talking about earlier about kids growing up and not needing to show up for themselves as often as prior generations. He said boredom causes more problems than distress, and I can't agree more.
100%. Idle, yeah.
That's
in my life.
Yeah, with me, that's 100%
The
true.
trouble we get ourselves into, the things we focus
sure.
on that we shouldn't, the things we spend times on, boredom, absolutely, positively.
So to combat that, if before we get into quotes and stuff, we haven't really defined what chapter 2 is about or part 2 is, and I don't think we need to, but he does address logotherapy and the meaning, and meaning can be discovered through 3 things. I think you'd be interested to talk. So the 3 things were work, love, and suffering.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. So work is doing something significant. Love is caring for another person. He defines that.
Yep.
And then suffering is finding a purpose in unavoidable pain, which is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he says too, like, if you can avoid pain, he was very clear on that. Like, don't go searching for pain just to find meaning in suffering.
Yeah, or if it's like self-induced or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same. What he's talking about is like, I was in this car accident and now I'm paralyzed.
Crappy things are going.
So how do you find?
happen.
But so how would you take his words and apply that, finding meaning in that suffering?
Well, the specific example that he uses is somebody that was in a diving accident, right? And they're paraplegic, and I can't remember what the meaning is that they.
That's the most important. That's what I don't understand.
I understand, but it had to do with his family. It had to do with the guys.
Is it their ability to help others who are going through similar situations, or?
Well, in some instances, that's like if you think about other examples of that you know of, like
sure. I think about Stuart Scott.
Bethany Hamilton getting bit by sharks and stuff, but being an inspiration for others.
I think about Stuart. Cancer seems to be.
Cancer is a big one.
Cancer seems to be the leading crazy cause in our generation, and that and heart failure. But Stuart Scott, there's this, I can't remember who talked about it, but someone talked about him getting chemotherapy. He died of cancer, and he would work out twice a day even when he was getting chemotherapy. He's like, it's not gonna affect me. It's not gonna take me down. Like, if it takes me down, it's not gonna take my dignity in the process. So I've never forgotten that. Just that little detail. Like, I don't know anything about his journey. I knew he had a glass eye because he got hit in the face with I think a football.
I didn't know that.
That's
but
how
I always knew his eye looked a little off.
Yeah, his glass eye.
That makes sense.
He was sideline reporter, and he got hit in the head with a football.
No way.
Lost his eye. He had a rough life, man. He got cancer,
I've
but
got his book. I haven't read it.
I
have it.
There was a woman from my hometown. There's a park that was built in Bremen, a very small town. It's called Jane's Park, and it's named after this woman who found out she had essentially like stage 4 cancer while she was pregnant. And if she waited to do chemo and stuff until after she had the baby, she was almost certainly going to die. but decided to, instead of doing chemo and these other things, have the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she died.
Mm.
And to me, it's those kinds of stories where it's like, even amidst that suffering and everything else, like its meaning, its purpose, it lives on.
Because again, it's all about what do you believe? Like if this is our one life, but it's all for the next one. It's truly, I mean, man's search for meaning in life can't come in this life, and all of, and if we all believe what we believe about the afterlife and Christianity, and then everything we do in this life is for the next one.
I think the proof that we've all gotten too bored and life has gotten too easy. I just want to come back to, like, he says there's indecent humans within every group in the world. So he's kind of talking about the Germans there. And I just thought, like, we have people that can't even do this with politics.
Yeah.
They're all bad, we're all good, we're all bad, they're all whatever. And
well, they do that to control too. Like that's all on purpose.
Yeah. But I just
rhetorically.
But I think the only reason it works is because we really don't have a whole lot to worry about.
Yes.
And we're focused on all the wrong things. Like it really bugged me that he could. It didn't bug me that he could do it, but it bugs me that we can't. It just really, really gets to me.
I got one more thing before we go to quotes. So, I don't know about you guys, but I put myself in their position. Like when you're reading this, you automatically, I feel like, think, what would I do?
Totally.
Right? That's like that. And I always get to the point where I'm like, I think I would do this. I think I would be okay. I hope I'd be a fighter.
Yeah.
The part that breaks my heart is thinking about a loved one going through this, and I can't do anything about it. Like not just your spouse, your kids, your parents, right? There was she's going to kill me for telling you guys this. There was a sideline, the guy that holds the chains at a football game that tripped over something, hit his head, and it was one of the games last week.
He got carted off.
He got carted off, and he seemed like he was okay, but like they just really didn't want to take any chances. So the camera was on this guy for like 5 minutes in the middle of this game, and Kelsey's just beside herself. She's like, if that was my dad, I would be crying. I am crying. I'm crying. She started crying right then and there. I was like, I love your heart. But like that's how I feel. Like if it's something like that, that's what breaks my heart, is thinking about a parent who's in their 60s or 70s, supposed to be retired and finally enjoying the fruits of their labor, going through that. Like, what do you do with that, man?
Well, I wasn't doing anything with it until now.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, bro.
Thank you. Marcus, anything else before we get to quotes?
One thing that I don't think I really thought about or realized was he describes the many of the people that came out. So he really takes this like being a prisoner psychologically into 3 different camps, right? When you first get there, and what that looks like, and then you go into this apathetic state, and then at the end, when you come out, what does that look like psychologically? And he described really 2 different kinds of people, right? Some that were like super thankful, and they couldn't believe that they had this freedom. They didn't even feel like they didn't even know how to enjoy things anymore, and they had to learn how to enjoy them again. Which you talk about, like I putting yourself in that position, like I can't even imagine, like not being able to enjoy something and having to learn to enjoy it because you had reached such a point of apathy and self-survival that you just couldn't do that. The other people that came out were so angry that just because they could, they were taking it out on the Germans in very inappropriate ways because now they were in the position of power, and they just became what they hated.
Yeah. It'd be very hard for me not to be that person. And I believe everything you're saying. And it's just, for everything we know, it'd be very hard.
Yeah.
Was it this book where he said...
I didn't even think about like these prisoners who then come home and all of the Nazis or SS or whoever, now they're in prison. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that they would probably want to have revenge.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Was it this book where he said, never judge someone unless you've been put in their situation and know how you would respond if you were in their situation? Was that this book?
Yes.
Yeah,
and I think it was during the part where there's actually a German, it's a doctor or someone that helped so many of the Jews, and they would not give his whereabouts up unless they promised not to do anything to him. So when whoever it was, whenever the Allied forces came in and they asked for where he was, they're like, you have to promise us you're not going to do.
Dude, that story of when they came in and the Red Cross comes in and then they leave. And then the Germans come back in
and they're like,
and
no,
take a bunch of people and go and burn them.
Mm-hmm.
And he just somehow, via fate...
He gets left.
Yeah.
Again, all quiet on the Western Front. There's the last scene of the movie. They're just like, okay, well, because they basically, they make a treaty and they have like an hour before they declare the war being over.
Yeah.
And so they take advantage of the last 5 minutes and go and massacre a whole small army.
Oh wow!
Well, I mean, Sherman does this in the Civil War, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy in The Revenant, if you want to take it to one of our, like, shooting the horses, right?
Yep.
Like, he's like,
that's not what was happening with that.
Thing.
That's not the same thing. He's
Brett
crazy.
and I both agreed that it was the same thing.
No, first of all, Brett's vote doesn't count when it comes to those kinds of things. We just that's just entertaining for us.
I'm gonna use his vote if I have it.
Yeah.
A true politician.
Okay, we need to put that out on the socials. Find out, why did he shoot the horse? Actually, I don't care what people think. I know why he shot the horse.
That's Rem not
That
wanting
tells
to
me
be
there's
wrong.
doubt.
No, there's no doubt.
There's doubt.
People just don't appreciate art.
Quote time. I'll kick us off. A man does not need a tensionless state. He needs the striving and struggle of obtaining a goal. How often have we talked ourselves into thinking we just need to take it easy, and that's what we need right now? And that always lands
That's
me in
probably
a
from
funk.
the second part, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always lands me in a funk.
There's a lot of quotes like in the second part that are worthwhile for sure.
Yeah.
All right, rapid fire. This is the one that I wrote in my message that I've used for 10 years. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I just think that is such a powerful quote that you can use over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus?
29.
I've got a quote that I don't know what it means.
Ooh.
And I'm reading it over and over again.
Does it have to do with an arrow or a target?
I don't know if I wrote it down wrong. She is not the arrow. Or she is the arrow.
Okay. At the moment, so this guy's having this intense nightmare, and he's thinking to go and wake him up, and he says, at that moment, I became intensely conscious of the fact that no dream, no matter how horrible, could be as bad as the reality of camp which surrounded us and to which I was about to recall him. So this guy's having a nightmare, and he goes to wake him up like you would normally wake somebody up. Hey, man, it's okay. We're here. Everything's all right. But he realizes in that moment, I don't want to do that.
Dude, and that's a real, like, this isn't a story. This isn't like this would sound good. Like, that's wild. Suffering stops being suffering once you find its meaning. He really believes that, man. Like, he really experienced that. Rem?
This must be in the same chapter or written a different way. If there's meaning in life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life cannot be complete. And you think about any movie, we've talked about this concept before, but if you think about any entertaining movie, there has to be an obstacle that is overcome for it to be worth watching. And if you think about any book or story, any story, there has to be an obstacle that is overcome. So suffering has got to be the most aggressive version of that. It's what makes for the most triumphant tales. And I don't know who said it. It's just a popular quote, but the mountaintops aren't as, I don't know what the word is, awesome unless there's valleys. Like the valleys are what make the mountaintops the mountaintops.
That was the message version. Use the word.
That was the message. The high five version of the Bible.
I'll get.
Well, it was allegorical.
I'll get. I'll get to his wife here in a minute when we talk about hidden gems.
It's awkward.
But he says the truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. I think, and to get to that spiritually, I think God puts that on our heart, right? He loves us, we love others, and that specific love for someone else is the highest goal to which man can aspire. So good.
He's talking about envying a young person. So he talks about this session where he's got an older guy. I think there's
loved this.
There's a woman who her young son had passed away. Like there's a couple of different situations going on, but it came out of this conversation. So it's on envying a young person. He says, "No, thank you," he will think. "Instead of possibilities, I have realities in my past. Not just fond things, but sufferings bravely suffered." Just his way to, and it's not.
Don't pity the old.
No, but it's not, and it's not even manipulating. Like it's like I leave those situations he talks about and going, dude, that's the best way to think about that situation. Absolutely, positively, it's finding. Yeah, it was. I would encourage anybody that just like there's so many findings he shares from his sessions with patients.
Yeah,
that I'm just like, oh man, that's impact. That's really helping that person.
Yeah, I loved that he talked about in that same section, he talks about how a lot of times people will look at the youth and envy the youth, Yeah. But that, they've got all kinds of things ahead of them, good, bad, whatever. And then they'll look at somebody that's old and they'll look at them with pity. And he's saying essentially like, don't pity that person.
Yep.
They have all these things that they've realized, all this wisdom that they've acquired, all of these different things. They've lived what that other person can only potentially look forward to. Like, don't pity them.
Yep.
I loved that.
Marcus, you.
Oh yeah, this is great advice. I felt like, just in general, I generally answered all kinds of questions truthfully, but I was silent about anything that was not expressly asked for. And I'm not saying that necessarily needs to be the case all the time, but I find that with myself, especially when it comes to social media, like I used to be on social media sharing my opinions and things all the time.
No. I don't remember that.
I did.
People must have really liked that.
Look it up.
You got tons of likes and comments and everyone loved it.
Well, there were lots of likes and comments. There were a lot of comments.
Did either one of us ever argue with you? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
I remember, dude, it was the Wild West when Facebook was first around. We would post some not good things.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
I deleted that Facebook.
But I guess I just think that it's really interesting. He was doing it as a mode of self-survival. Like, I'm going to answer honestly, but I'm just going to answer what you asked.
What I was asked, yep.
And I'm not saying that that's the best way to go all of the time, but I can't remember whose quote it is, but he's like, better to have somebody think that you're a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of thing. I think sometimes the less you talk and the more you listen, the more wise people feel like you are, right? And I thought that it was really wise for him to say I was silent about anything that I wasn't expressly asked for.
I think there's a big lesson for you there, Marcus. I think that was a great one for you to write down.
It was good for me.
Proud of you for writing that quote down.
I have one last one. It's when he's talking about his, I think it's his original theory, unemployment neurosis.
Yeah.
Man does not live by welfare alone. Meaning, I think so many times we think the answer is to provide somebody with a place to stay or a car to drive or money to spend, and that's just not true. Not true at all. We're valuing the wrong stuff. Any more quotes?
I think this gets to the purpose of the book here. Page 77 in our book. We had to learn ourselves, and furthermore, we had to teach the despairing men that it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who are being questioned by life daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual.
I think it speaks to his broader point of like, it's not a meaning to life, it's a meaning to this moment, which he talks about a lot. He talks about it being like how a motion picture is thousands upon thousands of individual pictures put together, and how you really don't know the meaning of the entire movie until that last sequence, but you know the meaning of each scene.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I like completely like jumped onto that concept when he first talked about it, as somebody that believes like, yes, God has a meaning for my life overarching, but there's also meanings to each moment that maybe they're not unveiled to me right away. I think I believed it more and more the more I read the book.
Yeah.
Was meaning. He talks about meaning to the moment, not just your entire life.
I can subscribe to that.
Yeah.
One thing, I don't have any more quotes. You guys have?
I'm good.
So one thing I forgot that I read and I really wanted to get in this episode just real quickly is the scene where he's describing the psychological battle you have when you have one last piece of bread and when to eat it.
Oh,
and
yeah, that was...
how long you think about it, and it's all you're thinking about. It's in your pocket, and you're thinking, do I make it last? Do I eat it now so I can survive the next couple of hours? Do I nibble on it the entire day? And it's...
Do you remember what he said, why he kept it, why he waited, and when he did eat it, though?
I think he would eat it. He would wait all morning. It was basically almost like intermittent fasting, but
he would wait until he woke up in the morning, because waking up in the morning was the worst. It was the worst time. When they were hurting, when they had to put the boots on, when they had to, like, people were...
This is what he looked like, by the way. Did you guys see that?
People were dying. I didn't.
Oh, Vic. Sharp cat.
People were dying, complaining, whatever. In that moment where you wake up and there's all of this dread of what's to come
Give
for
you
the day,
some sort of
he would. I can't remember the word that he used, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
He would take that little piece of bread that he had kept, and he would eat it, and it would bring him like some.
You're earning something. You're earning something from yourself. Like you're creating.
Do you think
earning?
You keep how long, or maybe you always do? Going through that, how long do you keep that mental edge? Like how long out of the camp do you think it took?
Well, that's what he talks about too later on. Is he's like, as these people were leaving, it was, what was the example that he used? He said, if it's almost like if you were in a pressurized cabin, right, way down under the sea, and then you got let out of that cabin, you would die,
right?
And that's how he described going from being in a concentration camp, to being free.
Yeah, Count of Monte Cristo, he's in prison for years and sleeps on the ground with nothing, and when he gets out, he has his king-size bed, but he's found sleeping on the ground next to it.
Yeah, one of the movies that I'd love to do at some point, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, I love Shawshank.
Right? I can't think of the old,
I haven't seen anything that we've covered, but that would be...
Morgan Freeman?
No, not Morgan Freeman, the other old guy.
Oh, that's brutal.
That goes and hangs himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because his meaning and purpose had come in prison.
Yep.
Yeah,
and out there, nobody had anything for him.
You guys seen Castaway?
Yeah.
When Tom Hanks gets out and he's having a drink and he goes, "There's ice in my glass."
Yeah.
It's just one of those moments where it's like,
oh yeah,
what is like? Okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. Hidden Gems.
Brooks was the name of the guy.
That's it.
Brooks was here.
Gosh, I love that
this
movie.
might be a stretch. Was that guy also in
That's
Downton
top
Abbey?
5 for me, by the way. Shawshank was definitely.
You asked your wife,
Shawshank was definitely top 5.
Oh yeah,
dude.
For
by
me.
the way, Downton Abbey's not all that horrible. It's
Okay.
actually, dude, I enjoyed it.
It might not be.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
Downton, was there a fantasy score? That'd be acceptable.
Are you gonna update us on?
Oh no, my
fantasy
wife is
football?
here for 2 reasons. One, to get pictures for our
Mostly 'cause we suck
Instagram.
at taking pictures.
Instagram is up and going.
Hold on, my dogs are out.
The government.
That's what the kids call it.
your feet. Let's.
Your toes specifically.
your dogs.
They make fun of your dogs.
Yeah.
being
That's
Who
the
your
stupidest
kids,
thing
your
ever.
youngins call it that?
middle school and high schoolers
Okay.
freak out about your toes being out.
Your dogs.
Yeah.
That's why they wear socks with sandals.
It's so stupid.
Put your dogs away.
Put your dogs.
The
away.
other reason
They seriously say
the other
stuff
reason
like
she's here is so if you guys enjoyed this read, or at least this subject matter, very deep and heavy, but I brought the expert down here so she can give us her takes.
Yeah.
Oh.
We needed an expert take on some things.
There's 2 books that I recommend that I think are phenomenal. The
Are
first
we
one,
not doing hidden gems?
Well, we're just.
Oh, okay.
we're just riffing here,
We're riffing.
Mangus.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. I thought you were wrapping us up.
No.
A
Rest area
couple
we
of
do.
good hidden gems I want to hit on.
Tattoos of Auschwitz. That
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz.
Okay, so time out right
I don't
there.
think that's a funny thing to joke about, Mangus.
Everyone got a tattoo of their number,
Yes. And it
So-
was usually a Jew that was actually the tattooist.
Yeah.
but he talks about switching with someone to do something, and they don't care. It's just a number. You can switch with somebody if you want to. So
All their clothes
they
are-
were
Well, they're
talking
just
about
talking
their
about
clothes.
closing not matching their number.
Their-
They're not
yeah,
talking
their
about
clothes
their
also
number
had numbers on
switching.
them.
They're just saying like,
But I felt like if it was like, hey, number whatever's supposed to get on that train, they were like, well,
that's not what they were talking
No,
about in that
okay,
moment.
got
It was
it.
just, yeah.
Okay.
But the tattooist, and there's Silka's Journey is the second one in that.
Silka's Journey.
Silka? Am I saying that right? Yeah. The other one, Winter Garden. Do you want to take this mic over here? Winter Garden comes from the Russian side, and is phenomenal. It's very interesting. Why is everyone laughing at me?
Well, because
I was just laughing at the face that your wife made when she was like, I'm trying to describe it to the
disgust.
audience. No, it
pure,
wasn't disgust.
Pure
It was like
disdain.
it was a bless your heart.
yes, that's what I'm looking for.
That's her name.
Yeah, by the way,
It's
it's
her-
kind of
that's
like.
how you
Bless your heart.
But by the way, it also
exactly
made me
what it
think of
is.
this. So we're doing a Bible presentation this weekend for Willow,
Yeah.
second graders, and there's like a Bible basics class that they have adults take, and she references how the New Testament is divided into the Gospels and then the history of the new church and whatever. And she talks about letters to the churches, but also letters to individuals. And she uses Philemon as an example.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, I've been calling it Philemon all this time. So
I don't have to go to that class anymore because I've been through it so many times.
Well, we took the virtual.
Nice.
Shout out Patty Kroll on the video.
Nice. I
But
like
it will be
Patty.
the last time that I do that.
Yeah.
All right, so real quick before we do hidden gems, I asked the professional to give us like 2 or 3 best World War II
I
novels.
thought she was just gonna come down and sit on your lap, but
Nope.
nope.
So here's the professional one, Kelsey Ramsey, her first appearance on the show.
Hi, it's good to have me here.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
It's good to have me here.
Did you think about that all the way down the stairs?
It just came to me, and thank goodness it came out smoothly
You
like
know
that,
what?
or I would have been like,
You know
hi.
what? Get comfy in that.
This is
spot.
your tryout
Get nice
in case
and
we're gonna
comfy
do
in
a
that
wives
spot.
takeover.
Hey.
Yeah. Get a little closer to that mic though.
So yeah, eat the mic. So you guys are interested in World War II?
Oh,
I don't know.
Novels?
I'm very surprised by this appearance. I'm not sure what we're waiting on.
2 to 3 novel suggestions from you.
2 to
Ooh,
3.
there you go.
That's tough because I have an entire bookshelf of World War II.
Nice.
So my specialty is fiction, but I like the ones like I'm pretty sure Natasha Lester is the author who she has her historical fiction, but then in the back in her acknowledgments, she'll include the interviews that she had, the research that she did. So like everything about the novel is based on fact and real people that she talked. I think it's Natasha Lester.
the historical fiction, since we've started reading stuff, I think that's now going to be my favorite genre. It's so good. So
we haven't
It
done
just
it.
makes- it
we
makes
haven't
it
done
come to
any
life.
historical fiction yet.
what would you call Boys in the Boat?
Historical.
Narrative.
Boys in the
Narrative.
Boat. And have you done
We did-
Unbroken, or have you just talked
We
about
haven't
doing
done
Unbroken?
Unbroken.
So Boys in the Boat would technically be historical narrative.
Historical fiction is an actual novel, but it's based on real events.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
that's-
probably what you're describing.
That's my obsession. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the ones with twists and the end, like that you never saw coming. Like the woman with the blue star. The twist at the end. I had to go back and reread the last paragraph multiple times just to make sure I got it.
Or the Allies win. Crazy. I
Axis.
Are you talking about like what would have been?
let's not
Oh
try
my
to figure this out
God.
right now. Let's not try to figure this out right now.
That's not a name of a book you're trying to chime in.
No, Brett is. World War II is the axis of evil versus the Allies, and Brett was thinking that the Allies were the ones that didn't win,
So close.
even though they were the ones that won.
No,
Oh, no.
I literally was
Oh, no.
I was making fun of a twist that was obvious about World War.
Oh, I
so
thought
the
you were
joke's
saying
on
that it
you.
would. I thought you were saying it would be a twist if the Allies won.
No, but funny, Remington's not by a mic right now because they both just got dunked on, but it's fine. Go ahead, Kelsey. Natasha, two more
more
for us.
books?
Two more books, and then we got to finish up.
Well, this one's a little more like romantic. But it's still absolutely insane, you guys. The Book of Lost
I like
Names.
romance.
The Book, of, Lost
Names.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I want to go back and if you guys read it, I'll read it with you
Ooh.
again, just because it's so good. I would have started it over right then. Like just keep reading it. That's an amazing twist throughout, and a lot of little nuggets about things that were happening in the war that I had no idea about. Super cool.
We try to come prepared to this podcast, Kelsey.
Winter Garden. I just got texted to come down here.
I'm just kidding.
And I'm really only here to take your all's pictures because Riley keeps asking you to take pictures of each other.
Well,
I started thinking you were doing it on purpose.
No.
The bad pictures. Like,
Nope.
here's
Marcus,
Marcus's shoe.
I'm a historically bad photographer.
on purpose?
No, I'm just bad.
There's no way you guys took that
Marcus took two
to
pictures
post on your social media.
simultaneously, not simultaneously, consecutively
Consecutively.
of people with their eyes closed, which
Yeah.
is very difficult. Like it's actually
Okay, listen.
And he sent
girls
them in
cheat.
to be
Girls
posted on
cheat
your
when they
social
take
media.
Photos. Girls take like 17 photos and then pick the good one. I just one
It's
shot.
not cheating.
Boom.
That's just wisdom.
Just like when I'm having kids. One shot. Boom.
I felt like I wanted to make a comparison to things that you do in your life that aren't just one hit a quitta moments, but maybe not.
Nope.
Maybe not.
Just go.
Every time this is probably too much information, but every time you talk about your kids and how many you have, I think of 6 back rubs.
My
His
team
team name.
I thought that was really clever. Yeah.
Extremely clever.
That's how I announced
all
our
started.
sixth. That's how I announced our 6th baby. By the way, is that my team name started as 5 back rubs, and then I changed it to 6 back rubs, and I waited to see who would notice, and Remington
you?
noticed. Yeah, Jim did an entire video without noticing, so sad.
Have you guys seen the Bills score?
Yeah,
Sheesh.
it's unbelievable.
I'll tell you right now. Well, we'll do a recap at the end.
Is
Yeah.
this the most
hit-
random episode ever? Because he's been texting me like almost the whole time. I'm like,
No.
how is this possible?
This is
You're
your-
getting updates on your.
No, I think it's going to be a pretty good episode.
This is your
Okay.
field, so you were on our mind.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna get your pictures.
yes.
All right. Thank you, Kelsey Ramsey. Everybody,
All right, hidden gems.
friend of the show.
Hidden gems.
Hidden
I got a
gems.
good one. I got a good one.
Time ever.
I got a good one. As we just had one of our wives on here, page 43. He talks about this violin on his wife's birthday. Do you guys remember this?
Mm-mm.
Oh man.
We try to come more prepared while you're searching.
Okay. He is hearing. He's in this camp in Auschwitz. It's his 2nd night in Auschwitz, and he's roused by music that he's hearing from I'm assuming it was the Germans, right? Suddenly there was a silence, and into the night a violin sang desperately a sad tango, an unusual tune not spoiled by frequent playing. The violin wept, and a part of me wept with it. For on that same day, someone had a 24th birthday. That someone lay in another part of Auschwitz camp, possibly only a few hundred or 1,000 yards away, and yet completely out of reach. That someone was my wife. He talks about that. He talks about how when he's hallucinating, he's having these conversations with his wife. It's more real than any conversations that he's ever had. Right before he thinks he's going to die, he says if this person that he's talking to sees his wife, that he should say that the few moments that he had with her, like as his wife, were better than all of this that he's been through. I just thought that there was this theme throughout that he doesn't hit on very much, but like that's why I put it in Hidden Gems, because I love that. I love.
It makes sense, his stance on love being such a strong...
For sure.
Yeah.
It carried him through.
Yeah, absolutely. Rem, anything for you?
I used up all my hidden gems in the show.
Mine as well. So we'll...
Textbooks tell lies. Did you guys catch that part? I thought that was fascinating. Right when he gets there and he talks about how, he's this doctor of psychology and he's learned all of these different things and the body's only capable of so much. Is like, well, the body can't operate with this little sleep.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, that was a lie. Or he couldn't believe that even though they couldn't brush their teeth, their gums were in great condition. All of these different things where he's like, the textbooks are lying to you. I thought that was just a hidden gem that was fascinating. It's like, hey, maybe not everything that we're told as truth is truth.
I'm going to the dentist for the first time in 16 years next month.
Nice. Congratulations.
You're going to be fine. I've done that twice in my life.
So did they try to schedule you for a 6-month follow-up right away?
For sure. They
And
probably
you're like,
try to
no,
see you the
I'll
next...
see you in... Okay.
Yeah, I'll see you
I'll
in
see you
16 years.
16 years.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared.
The last one I had was when they envy the prisoners. I thought that was fascinating. He sees like prisoners, like German prisoners, not Jews.
Mm-hmm.
They see them outside of the fence.
That's how bad it
and
was.
they envied the prisoners.
Yep.
I thought that was fascinating because they were like, well, maybe they at least have a decent meal and someplace to sleep. It's like, wow. Hidden gem, I thought.
Rating time 1 to 9. This is a hard one for me to rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different read or
Yeah.
different.
It's just
different-
about your enjoyment. How much did you enjoy it?
So I struggled between a 7 and 8, and I gave it an 8.
Wow.
Is that your way of going with decimal points without going with decimal
So
points?
I will. By the way, I think I should explain this. A 9 is the only thing that I will not go to the closest on. Meaning,
It has to be a 9.
A 9, an 8.9 is an
8.8
8.
is not a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
7.5 is an 8.
Yeah, I respect that, Brett Wiggins.
Hey, thanks, man.
Be wigs, as they say.
I wouldn't say enjoyment. That's not what I'm grading on. But man, I learned a lot, and I was glued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I lost him a little bit in part 2. Mm-hmm. But that whole part 1, I was glued to that. I would say 8.3. Really, really thought it was good.
So for me, it was a 7, only because I've read a lot more than you guys have on this subject, and I think there's other books that do a better job of captivating me around the scene.
Yep.
I do think this was special in that it was all about psychoanalysis, and that was analysis, and that was interesting.
And
his take on it.
Like if you're gonna read this book,
Yeah.
like
He's got some killer quotes in there, and
Super
I
applicable.
totally understand why this was given to you at a leadership conference.
Yeah.
Because the books that I enjoy probably wouldn't be given away. Like The Tattooist would not be given away.
Well, you said there are books
did they
that
make a movie of that?
They should if they haven't. I think it got picked up and it's not out yet.
I feel like I either
Yeah.
watched it or
no,
maybe
it's not
I've
out
read
yet.
the book.
It's not yet.
don't
I
know.
think it did get picked
So
up.
you
though.
said there's books that do a better job of putting you in the scene.
Yeah, putting you there, making you feel like, and what's going to happen next. With this, it was just
He's not
different.
really telling a story.
He's
in
not
that
telling
way.
a story. He's telling you different scenes to support what he noticed.
So would you say there's any books or any pieces you read that have done as much good as this book, when it specifically in concentration camp wise, in stories shared from that perspective? Because that's where I get the 8 from, is where it's like, to change so many people's mindsets around whatever situation they've got. That's how I viewed it.
Yeah, I mean, I
this
think
is
it's
a
honorable. I
worthwhile
think
read.
his effort to do
Yeah.
that is honorable. Yeah.
Yep. But I am excited to World War II is just there's such a deep.
So vast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean,
What's the
such
book? What's
a
the book about the
defining
Japanese soldiers? The Japanese American soldiers. What book was that? Was that you?
the one that the same author from The Boys in the Boat.
Is-
I don't-
oh,
I don't
that's what it
remember, but
was.
listen to that episode. if
That's all
want
you got to
find out.
say. That's all you got to say right there.
Yeah, I wanna
Daniel
read that one for
Daniel
sure.
Day. Daniel who?
I am
Daniel
excited.
Brown.
We're going to
Daniel
get into
James Brown.
Daniel
I think
James.
We decided. We haven't decided on what it is yet, but we're going to do a novel next instead of just doing.
Yeah.
We're going to see how that goes. So I'm
Dude,
excited
this
to do a
historical
novel.
narration situation, historical fiction.
Should we do another
Historical
Daniel
fiction is
James?
different.
Yeah, so I think I would enjoy both.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
But clearly, historical narration is what I enjoyed a lot.
Let's get out of this time period and get something. Let's
Yeah.
come back. Let's come
I
back
think
after
so.
some research.
I think so.
Well, we know what's next, though.
What is next, Brett?
Well, unlike the listeners of this podcast who have won, you lose. Good day, sir. Willy Wonka is next. Gene Wilder edition. We talking
72?
something.
No idea.
1970 something. 1970 something. Neither of
It
you
was
know that.
1970.
We are the dreamers who dream.
in the
I
world
was
that
talking
I
about
grew up in.
Notorious B.I.G.
Schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Love it.
That's a good quote in 2 movies.
I'm gonna have a lot of quotes.
Have you heard the background on that quote?
In the second movie?
No, in Gene Wilder.
No.
There.
Save it.
Was
Cliffhanger.
I think there's a.
We'll tell you the background.
was it
like
ad libbed?
It was a. I'm gonna sneak this in, and the studio will never know.
The meaning behind it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. I can't wait for the episode.
Rem has some
that's
fun.
And-
Actually,
cliffhanger.
this might be Rem's
I won't look
pinnacle
it up. I
episode
won't
with
look
the
it up.
amount of stuff you can.
Oh,
probably
yeah.
grab out of this one.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun episode. Like I said, I watch it once a week, so I'm ready to go.
We'll see you guys.
Bye.